Hi, folks. Tom McHale again with American Handgunner magazine here at SHOT Show 2024. Got another treat for you all. We are talking with James Queisner, instructor at the world-famous Gunsite Academy, and I'm going to say even more importantly, has been writing columns for American Handgunner magazine. You might have seen some of James's stuff in our Make Ready column. That is about training tips and learning and combatives and what the real world is like, in self-defense situations and things like that, which is what kind of Gunsite is famous for, so no big surprise there, right? So we're going to chat a little bit. I think by the time you see this, I think you've probably done a couple of different columns for us. I remember you did one that was talking about, how to be a good student when you go to get training. It sounds so simple, right? I mean, I'm going to go get training. I'll be a good student. This is a really big deal. I'm kind of passionate about it, as you can tell. So
it is, and I get passionate as an instructor because when you go through a training, you can always learn something else, and you can always try a different way. It may not be the way for you because of other things you've done in life, but what's the harm in trying? That's why you're there, to train and to learn something new. And you may pick something out really valuable that, I never thought of it that way. So it's always a good idea to kind of keep an open mind.
You know what? You said something key to me, and that's there's no harm in trying, because I've been to dozens and dozens of condensed training events, as part of what I do for a living, and you get a lot of similar things over and over, but I love to go into every one of those and say, okay, this is a new instructor with something to say. What can I learn today? And I can't tell you how many things I've tried. And you got to take it home for a while and try it, right? Like somebody may have a slightly different hold technique or a little variation on, bringing your gun to aim or whatever. I'm just making stuff up. But take it home, try it, give it a whirl. Ultimately, you got to do what's right for you, but, Well,
and I think we're seeing that a lot with the red dots going on guns, too. People have spent years and years and years shooting iron sights, and they put this big box window on the top of their gun, like, I can't find the dot. This is terrible. Why? Yeah. This is the most terrible thing ever. Yeah. It takes some good repetition and some good practice, and that's a prime example of if your first try isn't successful and just put it back in the box, you really didn't give it the full try.
Right. Yeah. I personally, I think you gotta give it the try while you're at the class, right? And then you got to keep giving it the try when you get home. And know it's a trial. You don't have to change your method forever. You may not like it. Whatever it is you learn, but if you don't do it for a while, then.
Well, and I think part of that, too, is sometimes we don't like what's uncomfortable to us.
Right.
And trying something new and really working anew, whether it's an optic or a training method, it's going to be uncomfortable for a while until you spend some real quality time in it. I'll give you a great example. When I was a young copper, I had a AR-15 was my duty rifle, and I was going to test for the big SWAT team. So all the SWAT operators, they got optics on their guns. This is before optics were so prevalent on rifles.
Right.
So
the cool guys had the cool stuff,
right? So I'm like, I need one of those on. And I put that on top of my gun, and I couldn't hit the broadside of the barn because I had no idea what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I tested with just iron sights, and then I mounted it properly, learned a little bit more about it, took it to a class, and spent a week on it.
Right.
And then I'm like, oh, my God, this is the greatest thing ever. So I went from not being able to hit the broadside of a barn to this is the best thing ever. So,
right.
But I had to give it the time.
Right. So I imagine you see a lot. Let me ask you, at Gunsite, when you're teaching all these classes, do you see a lot of resistance to change? I know, because face it, we all show up at a class, this is how we shoot. This is how I do it. No, I don't use that stance. I use this stance, Do you get a lot of resistance, or do you find people more open-minded?
We try and kind of nip that at the start of the class when we say, you spent all this money coming here. Just give it the honest try and really work through it. Because if you're just going to do it the same way you've been doing it, why'd you even come?
Right.
So, give it the honest try and let us explain it. And a lot of times at Gunsite, everything works into everything. The way we work malfunctions is the way we reload guns, and it all kind of fits within each other. So some people don't have a system like that where they have one way of doing malfunctions and another way of loading the gun, and they're different, where we try and incorporate everything into one so that kind of your whole, it's a wheel instead of a square.
Right. So important stuff. So let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
Well, actually, before I do that, so somebody out there is going to be taking some training somewhere. Any quick words of advice, how to go into that class to get the most out of it?
Well, I think you really want to do your homework. Training is so expensive these days, And when you add on the cost of travel and the cost of lodging and the cost of all the things you need for the class, do your homework and go somewhere good. Don't find the guy who just hung a shingle on YouTube. Really, research it, read the reviews, and reach out to people and say, hey, have you been here? You want to get a good fundamentally based class to really get that good foundation for you.
Right. Buy once, cry once.
That's a good way of putting it.
Well, while we're on that topic, what about gear bringing to a class? Not what gear, but some classes will say, hey, bring 2 guns, bring backup. What types,
I think
just some high-level tips on what people should bring to a shooting class.
I think the biggest thing is always to bring something that's quality that you're familiar with. So many times we have people who got this brand new gun, either it was given to them and they haven't had any time on it. So now they've spent this time really familiarizing themselves with the weapon they brought, and it detracted from a little bit of their training time.
Right.
So bring quality and bring something you're familiar with.
Right. We were just talking before we went on there about people who show up with a subcompact gun. Maybe what you carry, but boy, that's a tough one to do a 5-day 1,000 or 1,500 round class.
Yeah, and there are classes specifically for the smaller guns for the concealed carry, so know which class you're going to and know which weapon system is appropriate for it.
Good advice. Okay, so we'll shift gears a little bit.
All
so
right.
you more recently did a column for us. I believe the title was Training for Absolute Chaos, and I loved it because all of us, and I'm going to include myself, we have this vision of our self-defense encounter, and it kind of looks like we're there, we see trouble far away. The trouble dutifully stands still and waits to be shot while we draw, maybe rack the slide a few times, take
like in the
aim
movies.
and dispatch the problem. Well, yeah, I mean, it's not like that. So, I'd love for you to talk to us a little bit about how people can better train for reality.
Right. And when we talk about that, when we do our work on the range, it's a relatively sterile environment. The target's right in front of us. We're standing at the yard line. We're squared up. The world is a living place. And you don't have the factors of, do I have my family with me? Is there somewhere I can go where I have cover? Are there lots of people around me? Is the fire alarm going off? What is the actual chaos that's happening around me as this is happening? So I think that's one of the things that people don't really think about. There's lots of ways to get around that. When I was a baby copper, we called it the what if game. Yeah. What if this convenience store gets robbed? What am I going to do?
Okay.
What if someone pulls up alongside of my car and I see a weapon out the window? Where am I going to go? And your brain starts planning and kind of getting some blueprints. I don't have the perfect plan, but I have a plan that I can go to and make work. Yeah. And if you do that, just those mental rehearsals in your head that already starts putting you ahead of the game. And then I think the ultimate, when it comes to actual trying to get as close as you can to a real confrontation, is force on force. Yeah. And it's not glorified paintball. You need to go to somewhere where it's a scripted event for a specific outcome, and that induces that stress. You have a live human that you're interacting with, and I think that really helps, again, put that blueprint in your toolbox for when something actually happens.
Well, you don't know what they're going to do, and quite frankly, you don't know what you're going to do. And so I've done a number of those at Gunsite. You guys do a great job of force-on-force stuff out there.
Yeah, and it's amazing as an instructor, I've got to watch people. And you can see the physiological.
You didn't watch me, did you?
I
might have embarrassed myself.
We don't want to talk about that on camera. People.
Thank you.
People are shocked at the emotional response they get.
Yeah.
Even if it's not the force on force, if it's just a actual face on a target.
Yeah.
One of the targets we use at Gunsite is sometimes a hostage target in our shoot houses, and it is a emotional experience for some people who have never had to think, oh my God, there is a person holding someone I love in a terrible position. What am I going to do? I've seen people cry. I've seen people lose their breath, because it's just an emotional response that they're now experiencing for the first time for lots of people.
I want to come back, and it kind of ties to the point you're making right now, the importance of the what if game, right? I mean, somebody's out there is going to say, oh, that's a paranoid lifestyle. It's like, I don't think so. I think it's liberating, and I think it's calming to recognize that stuff happens in the world, and you're planning in advance is what reduces stress.
And I don't think it's any different than if you went into a big department store and you're like, oh, I wonder which way I came in from. Yeah. You still got to remember how to get out of the building.
Right.
It's the same thing as we're playing the what if game in these more tactical scenarios. Where do I need to go? Which way is the exit? Oh my gosh, the fire alarm went off. How should I get out of here?
Sure. Well, you know what? I in all seriousness, I played the what if game at Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
boiling my turkey outside.
Yep.
And my what if was, what if one of the crazy dogs that's over today knocks this thing over?
Right.
I'm going to get my fire extinguisher. I'm going to set it like 15 feet away from that stuff, or 20, whatever it was, and the one I normally keep in the kitchen, and I'm going to put it there in case I need it.
And
what if game? That was not a paranoid lifestyle.
No.
That was, and I think how many what if games do we play every single day? Driving a car or walking across the street or whatever, Yeah,
it's
subconscious.
It's no different if you see coming up to a four-way stop sign and you see a car that seems to be going a little fast for a stop. Well, if he doesn't stop, I know I'm going to turn right and press the brake real hard here. It's the same concept, and it gives your brain that head start.
Right.
You've already started thinking about it.
Yeah, and I find it can be very, very much of an awakening too. I mean, when you break yourself out of that perfect my defensive scenario of the bad guy standing over there, dead steady while we shoot him, right? Think about what if the guy behind you in line at the convenience store whips out a gun and says, "Everybody on the floor,"
Right.
I mean, that's the kind of reality that does happen on a daily basis.
And we see it, and I mentioned it in the column. There's really no place that it can't happen, and it doesn't have to be a lethal encounter.
Right.
It can just be an act of Mother Nature. It can be anything, anywhere you're out in public or at home. So just having a plan of something to do.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything on the training front you'd like to leave our viewers and listeners with before we move on to the next topic?
Well, I think we mentioned earlier, if you're new to the shooting sports, really get some good quality training. The first person who gives you your real formal training is really that important instructor, because they lay that foundation.
Right.
So make sure it's somewhere great, and we're always having classes at Gunsite, so make sure you get there.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll put in a plug for that. If you go out there and take their 250 class or a lesser one if you have no experience shooting, you will value that for the rest of your life. It's really good training.
They call it the experience for a reason.
Yeah, it is. It absolutely is. So fantastic. So let's move on to something. Right. I think you had a little time to wander the floors here. By the way, if you don't know, SHOT Show is gigantic. There are, I think, this year's number is 2,700 exhibitors. 2,700. Wow. If you just walk by every booth, it's something like 14 miles of just guns and gear and stuff and training and right. I mean, I know you didn't cover all that today. What'd you see? Would you see anything cool and interesting on your?
I've really been excited about the pistol-mounted optics coming out.
Yeah.
So, and I think we're really in the infancy, and you can see by everyone's new iterations. The new RMR HD from Trigicon, I'm super excited to see that. It has a bigger window. You can change your reticle, and it's just a really good piece of gear. And I can't wait to get my hands on one and really get one on a gun and try it, give it the honest try like Drew Hawk about and really run it through its paces.
We had the opportunity to go out to Texas and try those before they hit the market, and I'm not exaggerating. The units we had already been through about 30,000 rounds of testing, from the engineering department. We took them on our pistols and literally beat them upside down on 2x6s as hard as we possibly. No, first we shot for 1-inch zeros at 15 yards, right? Then we beat the hell out of these things on 2x6s, sight down, right? Immediately shot again for 0. Not only did they not break, they did not lose their 0. Not a single one out of like 20 units that we were shooting.
And Trigicon has
it's tough.
Trigicon has a great history of building stuff for the military and they make it to be indestructible.
Yeah.
And their RMRs, I have yet to see something that doesn't have that reliability like they have.
It was pretty impressive.
Yeah.
Anything else catch your radar today?
I was down at the Shadow Systems.
Yep.
And I'm a big fan of their stuff.
Yeah. Nice guns.
Their way they're doing their direct mounts on their guns is just it's a piece of artwork, and it really doesn't take you long to mount the guns. It has good purchase in there, so it really sits solid on the gun.
Yeah.
It's a low profile because it sits right on the slide, and they're just fun to shoot.
Yeah. They make a very nice gun. So.
Yes, they do.
Well, cool. I know you got all day tomorrow to wander around too. So today's starting to wind down a little bit, but hopefully you see some more gear tomorrow.
Hopefully the feet will hold up for the day.
No, that never happens. So anyway, keep an eye out for James's stuff in American Handgunner magazine. He's going to be doing more for us. We're probably drag him kicking and screaming into doing some gear stories too. But definitely much more on the training front. So look forward to that. Again, thanks for being with us, and thank you for joining us here.
Okay.
And we will catch up with you tomorrow.
Thanks, Come see us at Gunsite.
I will.